Hello brick sculptors and welcome back to Brick Sculpt. This is Chris and today we're going to talk about applied jumper theory and specifically using jumper plates to enhance your windows and doors on your buildings. Now if you like these videos I do, the best way you can support this work is to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. If you haven't seen my video on Lego jumper theory, I highly recommend you watch that video first. I'll link it right here. If you don't want to follow my advice, that's cool too, but I will link it at the end as well if you want to watch it afterwards. This video is going to build on that video, and we're going to discuss a lot of the things that we already discussed in that video and apply them to an actual Lego build scenario. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, in building Lego MOCs, if you're a beginner, your buildings will probably look something like this. A couple of doors, windows, wall, you might play with the colors a little bit and the textures, but the biggest problem I had taking stuff like this to the next level was depth. When you look at a wall like this, it's incredibly flat. There's really nothing sticking out of it, and that's because Lego works on these individual brick systems where everything kind of either goes in line or sticks way out in front or way behind. For example, maybe I want to try to add depth to this, and I could try, let's say, moving the door. If I take this top row of bricks off, I can put my doors back here and try to recess them a little bit. And it's almost too much depth. Maybe I want to put them out in front. I could do something like this. Maybe put a little awning over the top. But they're almost too far out in front. And let's say I want to play with the windows a little bit. So like instead of having a flat window, maybe I want to have a ledge and an awning. Well, I could pull this window out and put something like this in here. Where we got a little ledge built under it and an awning on top to give it some depth. And maybe over on this side I want to have this window recessed back. I could take this out and replace it with something like this that would sink it into the wall. And if we put our bricks back on top here and lock it down, we did create some depth, but this is too far sunk in the wall and these jut out really far. Which this might work for some applications. Maybe you want to put some flowers or something on here. Maybe you want to put a slope on this and make it more of a cloth awning. But still, the window is totally flush to the wall, which in real life, windows are usually recessed in like this, just not that crazy far. So I want to talk about how we can use jumper plates to enhance these kind of techniques and make them look more realistic. So here I have an example of another wall I built. And yeah, I used textured bricks here to make it look a little nicer and maybe some nicer windows and doors, but you can see a difference in depth here. You can see all the windows are recessed, the doors are recessed. I've got ledges and overhangs here, but they don't stick out near as far as this. And that's because I did all this with jumper plates. And I think this looks a lot more realistic because windows are typically recessed in, but just a little bit to the facade of the building. Same with doors. And the way I did this, I have a jumper plate underneath. Now again, if you watched my first video on Lego jumper theory, you now know jumper plates are super handy, but they have rules. As I described it in that video, you kind of have to jump into a different dimension and then jump back out of it, back to the real world to make everything connect up with what you've already built. So every jumper plate has to have an equal and opposite reaction to jump back to where it was. So the window jumps in, having jumper plates on the bottom here, which are actually up underneath this ledge. They're kind of hidden on this one. And then they jump back out on the top here. If I deconstruct this a little bit, I can show you. See, I've got two jumpers here and two jumpers here. And in doing that, I can get that half brick recessed look. So let me show you some techniques here on something else I put together and see if we can make a little more sense of this. Now here's a basic wall with 4 window openings, and I want to kind of show you how I go about using jumper plates when applying them to windows. So here I have a window that has jumpers on either side, so I can get this window directly in the middle of these studs here and here. Now let's call this a strip of jumper plates. I do have this on a 2x4 plate. That is completely optional. I did it for this video to make these easier to handle, but you definitely could just lay these flat on here too. You don't need to have this. If you want a little bit thinner ledge or a little different detail, you could absolutely do that. I'm just doing this to make it easier for the video. And on the top here, let's call this an anti-jumper. And all this is 2 jumpers that are centered in the middle of this 2x4 plate, taking it from 1 stud back out to 2. So again, each jumper plate, each jumper has to have an equal and opposite action to get it back to the real world. So if we do that, we can now take this and we can put it on our wall and have our window half stud recessed into the wall while the top still lines up. So we can lock this down easily, and that's a pretty good look. We can also do the opposite. So let's say we flip these around and I put my jumpers on the top and my anti-jumpers on the bottom. Well, this is going to give me the ledge look. So basically, if I put this in here now, my window is recessed, half a brick in. I have a ledge that's a full brick, but it only sticks out half a brick. And I have an awning that sticks out half a brick. And again, this also lines up, and you could easily lock this down to meet up with the original wall. Now let's say we want the window to protrude outward. A little less common of a technique, but definitely something that has some applications. This is the exact same setup I did for the first window, but instead of putting it on the front studs here, I'm going to put it on the back. So it sticks outward. And in some things, like maybe in a drive-through, this would look kind of cool, having a window that pops out from the wall. And I'm sure you could find a lot of applications where that would work well. And again, because I have 2 sets of jumpers, it lines up with the wall here. This technique here will also work in the same regard, where I have them opposite, but I'm just going to spin this around. So this will have no ledge, but will stick out from the wall. And keep in mind, like I said before, you don't have to have this second row here. You could take this out and just put a row of jumpers in here. You also, with modern jumpers, if you're using the old ones, this doesn't work, but they also have 3 mounting positions. You can mount here, here, or here on each of these. Meaning in rows of 4 like this, you can mount it in 4 different locations. You could do it pressed in the middle, or pushed out. Now, if I do them in the middle, I can still have a nice ledge look to it. But keep in mind, I'm not actually jumping this. I am using jumper plates, but since I use the middle, it's really working just as a 1x1 plate. So though I do have that ledge detail, the window is still flush with the front of the facade here, which still isn't a terrible look in some applications, but because we didn't jump it on the bottom, we don't need to jump it on the top. See, this now does not line up with the current wall. So be careful. Just because you're using a jumper doesn't always mean you're jumping, if that makes any sense. Now another application here with these ones that are pushed out, maybe you don't want them pushed out, but you want them moved forward, is you could take pillars and put them in front. So now we're back to being recessed half a brick on these, but you might be saying, wait, but this is no different than over here. Well, it is, because you have this gap underneath, which can give you some added detail on a building if you want to be kind of pushed in for the whole window section, have the window popped out a little bit, and you could still have a ledge that's flush with the front of the building, or even pushed out if you wanted to put a bigger ledge on it. A lot of different things you can do with this. What I would recommend you do, get a whole bunch of just single jumper plates. In all the jumpers Lego has ever created, I by far think that this individual piece is the most useful. You can do so much with this piece alone. Go out and buy 40 or 50 of these and just experiment with them. They're inexpensive. You can get a lot of them for not much. And you can really enhance your detail on your buildings, going from something flat like this to something like this. Well, I hope you guys found that useful. I hope you could use this in some of your own mocks and cities. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comments. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do more just like this in the future, and we will see you next time.